Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here with the Conscious Living Podcast, another exciting episode inside of which we educate, empower, and enlighten our world. And today, I'm going to be joined for that task of educating, enlightening, and empowering our world by just an extraordinary thought leader and visionary and an expert in this field of consciousness and raising consciousness in our world. April Seifert is a social cognitive psychologist. Say that 10 times fast before you get up in the morning. An expert in her field, co-founder of an organization called Peak Minds, where she and her business partner, help companies and individuals elevate their performance. And April, I will invite you to say a little bit more about that, but thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to meet. April interviewed me for Best Year of Your Life Summit, which was just a delightful experience for me. So you have such a rich, deep, and broad background. Just dive in there and tell us about Peak Minds and your work in general.
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, I'm so thrilled to be here. It was great to connect with you with this recent Best Year of Your Life Summit. And given the work that both of us do in the realm of life design and intentional living, I just knew that we needed to do more together.
I know,
so this is great.
This is the second of many, I'm sure.
Yay, good. Okay, so background. I'm going to hit two things. I'm going to hit some personal experiences that I've had, and then I'll hit some stuff on the professional side. My backstory and how I got into both psychology and the work that I do today really was rooted in a couple of pretty pivotal personal experiences. I grew up in a small Midwestern town, very similar upbringing that, a lot of people who grow up in small towns have.
Yeah.
Except when I was young, my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer. And at the time, we didn't have the treatments and the, preventive, treatments that we have today. And after 5 years of battling colon cancer, my dad passed away. Wow. And, it's interesting because all of the things that you would expect to happen after losing a parent at that age or such a significant figure in your life at that age, those all happened, right? Like financially, it was difficult and we had to pick up the pieces. There was grief and a lot of emotional pieces came along with that. But what I didn't expect was the real lesson in all of it that came decades later. You mentioned that I'm a psychologist. So, decades later, I found myself in graduate school. I was in a doctoral program for social cognitive psych. We'll get into what the heck that is in a second. But I had been following the path that was really laid out for me. I had been following the path that I thought was the correct one for people to follow, that you go to undergrad, you go to graduate school. Once you're in a program like that, you become a professor, you go to work at a Research One institution, you do all that work like step. You do the right thing, right? And I was sitting at my desk and I had this moment of clarity and I can't explain where it came from. Mm-hmm. But I was sitting there writing a paper and you probably are familiar with this, stacks of journal articles and books all around me. Yeah. The place looks like a bomb went off. And I sat there and I thought about all the things that I wish I was doing instead of what I was actually doing.
Wow.
On the outside, I was killing it, right? You're getting a Ph.D., you're running multiple research studies that I was the primary researcher on. I was publishing, I ran a lab, I was raising the next generation of researchers, you name it, right? She's killing it. And on the inside, I was thinking about, I've always, wanted to run a marathon. I've lived with, side note, lived with multiple sclerosis for now 25 years. And this was a thing that I thought, oh my gosh, like people like me can't do this, but what if I could? But I was afraid to try. And I wanted to do public speaking. And I thought, oh my gosh, people like me, we don't use our voices in that way so publicly and put ourselves out there. And I was going over all of these things in my mind, all of these like regrets really that I had in my mind. And I thought about my dad. Wow. And I thought, what would, and this is literally the question that just tipped my life on its side, completely changed my thinking forever. I thought, well, if my dad were here, what would my dad give to have these opportunities that I'm just wasting right now? What would he give to come back? Would he literally sit here and think, oh gosh, you know what? I can't run a marathon because what if I run it slowly and that's embarrassing? No, he would go do the thing because he didn't have that opportunity.
Right.
And it really sunk into me that the way that we live, the way that we intentionally make decisions by design, not by default, defines what the path truly can be for us, rather than following that default path that I was following. So, these personal experiences really drove home the importance of how we live, how we choose to spend our time, who we choose to spend it with. And it was a moment that just changed my life forever. And I just could never go back after that point.
Wow. And did you run the marathon?
I did. I've actually run a couple of full marathons, a whole bunch of half marathons, a bunch of 10 miles. It took a really long time. I'm the slowest runner you'll ever.
Yeah, but you're out there, you're doing it.
So fun, right? So I did finish my Ph.D. program, social cognitive psychology. For those who are unfamiliar, if you start at the end, we all know what psychology is: study of the mind. Right. The cognitive part, we study how we encode, store, use information. The social part means it's information about people and social settings. So I study things like how we interact with others, how social settings impact our behavior, our thoughts, our emotions. We study things like social constructs like gender and race and ethnicity, how those impact the way that we interact interpersonally. All the big beefy stuff, like how do we interact with other people? That's the stuff that social psychology.
So great. That's what in my life design course, that's what I call context. What's the context that you're living in? And the context defines your behavior.
So much of it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if you're not conscious of the context that you're in and consciously, as you say, choosing, designing, creating how you want to be in life, if you're born and raised in a, small, rural, super red part of the country, that is going to go a long way to define your views and your beliefs vis-a-vis, being born in some progressive, urban, blue, kind of part of the country. That's just a simple example, but we could drill that down into so many places. So I love that we're so much on the same page about this, that we're both life designers and have committed our lives to that. So what an inspiring story. I'm also an athlete, and I play racquetball and basketball, and I've gone to the national senior games, and I'm still at almost 60 playing basketball 2-3 times a week. So, it has never occurred to me as one of those flash moments, gosh, I wish I could go run a marathon. I just want to say that. So I do admire your tenacity and your grit for, particularly with your diagnosis of MS, going out there and just kicking it and running marathons and 10Ks. And that's impressive.
And what I wrote on the back of, when you sign up for a race, they send you your number, right? They send you your bib that you pin to your shirt.
Sure.
I write the same thing on the back of my bib every single time. And I write this sentence. I write, someday I might not be able to do this. This chokes me up. Today is not that day.
Oh my God.
I've faced with MS, I've just a little bit of additional personal context. I've been blind twice. I've been paralyzed more times than I can count. So many things have happened in the context of this unpredictable chronic condition. I actually go see my neurologist today, which is funny that we're speaking about this today. But you have to think about the situation that you're in right now. Like, we all face uncertainty. We're all going to end up in, I mean, sorry to break it to you, like, we're all going to end up in the same position my dad was in, right? We all face uncertainty with regard to our health. I just know what part of my uncertainty is. It's
right.
MS,
You have
right?
a little more clarity about your uncertainty.
About one part of it, but there's other uncertainty out there. Like, anything could happen, right? And so what's important about the work that we do, and why I get on this soapbox and pound on the table and am so passionate about telling people about it, is that take this seriously. You get one shot here in this version of this life. And it is so important that you use it well.
So true, April, which leads me to such an important question, because you can't design your life from the inside out if you don't have a deep and sustaining relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe some of our listeners are kind of new to this conversation of like, design your life. And what are you two talking about? And you seem all excited about it, but gosh, I don't even know myself. So, let's start there. A lot of people say that, oh gosh, I just wish I knew myself better, which, for you and I, I'm like, I don't even understand that, but I do remember it. I remember it back, earlier part of my life. So how does one, perhaps the newer listener to this kind of a topic, how does one begin to cultivate a relationship with oneself? And then why does that matter anyway?
Yeah. I'm going to start with an analogy. Imagine two people. So you've got one person who does not care about their car. They don't care at all about their car. They drive maybe this, whatever. It was an afterthought. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't take care of it. They maybe don't wash it super often. Like, it just is not important to them. How much time do they spend thinking about that vehicle? How much time do they spend detailing it and doing the preventive things to keep it running well?
Yeah,
probably
I'm
not
thinking
a
of
lot.
my Uncle Mike's truck, which every time I get in it, I just like want to obsessively go clean it, because there's layers of dust. Like, I don't think it's ever been cleaned on the inside.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's no sense of connection to it, no thought about it, no attention being paid, no focus. Yeah, I get your point.
Right. And then think about people who adore their car. They love it. What do? They wax it. They spend intimate time making sure that it's taken care of. What is that sound? Maybe I need to get that checked out.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it's running well. The engine sounds a little different. We better, do an oil change. And the bottom line to that analogy is that we take care of the things that we love. And cultivating a relationship with yourself where you love yourself first is one of the first steps to life design. We chatted before we were setting up this podcast recording about just schools of thought that we follow in terms of life design. And I love the Stanford University Life Design Lab. They talk about life design in the same way that we talk about product design. So if you think about, the iPhone or the Instant Pot and why they're such beloved consumer goods.
Right. I have one of each.
Totally. Yeah. Right. And there are blogs written about them and people adore them. And it's just, why is that? It's because they were created with the human-centered design process, which starts with getting to know the user. Who is the user? What makes them tick? What are their goals and how can we help them achieve them? What are the struggles they have? What barriers do they need to overcome? What is the context that they live in? And how does that impact them? So much of that centers on, in the life design process, you are the user. Right. So how do we
of your life?
Yes, exactly. You are the one user. So how do we get to know you? How do we understand your goals and your struggles? How do we understand what it takes to support you as you move forward and get the right design around who you truly are so that you can be successful, which might be very different than another person in similar circumstances. You're unique. And so let's get to know you.
So great. And what are your steps in your process to help people get to know you?
Yeah, I actually did a podcast episode on my podcast about this because it's funny. My husband makes fun of me. He's like, you talk to yourself more often than anybody else I've ever seen. And he's not wrong. And here's the thing about it. It's a journey that I've been on for the last handful of years where I've started thinking about the way that I interact with myself and the way that I interact with other people who I love. So let's take my kids, for example. I have a daughter who is in kindergarten and I have a 3-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
How do I interact with them? And I'm going to give a few specific examples. So when my young daughters come up to me and they're hungry or
Right.
they're tired, how do I respond to them when they're hungry or tired? Do I say, keep going. You haven't earned lunch yet. You didn't get enough done yet. You need to keep going. You need to go execute. You can eat later or you'll eat at dinner time.
Go gut it out.
Right. No, I say, oh my gosh, honey, sit down. I'll get you a sandwich. Like, oh my God, of course you're hungry. It's lunchtime. Like, let's get you some soup or something to eat. We don't do that with ourselves. We don't take care of our own basic needs. We expect ourselves to keep going, even when our basic human biology is saying, I need to eat. I need a break. I need some just space. I need to sleep. Let me do the basics.
Yeah.
So that is like bare bones. How physically, what is the care and feeding you offer to yourself? And does it look similar to what you would offer to another person that you love?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect that I ask people to think about.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah, it's such a deep question that, in the technological era and maybe before, I don't know, but we've become such human doings.
Yeah.
We're constantly like, I'm so busy and there's so much to do and we're inundated with, media and information. And there's just, our world is so fast paced that I do think that sense of inward reflection of, who am I? What do I want? What do I need in this moment? Even as simple, basic things like, do I need a snack? Do I need a nap? Those are pretty basic, fundamental ways. But yeah, without being able to attend to yourself. So let me just ask you that. What's the cost of it? Because I think certainly a lot of women and probably men as well, but we're both women and we're both moms. And that comes to mind, for me. If you can't care for yourself, what is the cost of that? Not only in your own self, interpersonal, but your intrapersonal as well, interpersonal with other people and intrapersonal with yourself. How does that impact both your inner world and your outer relationships?
There's so many ripple effects. Let's keep going with my relationships with my daughters, right?
Okay.
What am I teaching them about what it means to be an adult woman if I don't take care of myself? What are they learning about what it means to support themselves as an adult woman if I'm not supporting myself?
Right.
Also, my co-founder in Peak Mind, Ashley Smith, she's a clinical psychologist. She has the best sentence. She's like, you know what? Unfortunately, the reality of it is that you are a human being constrained by biology. You have basic biological needs. They need to be taken care of. You are a very emotionally complex houseplant and you need care and feeding. And when you don't do that, your ability to show up and be present with people around you, to be in tune to their emotional landscape, to regulate your own emotions. Like, I'm a cognitive psychologist at the core.
Yep.
Cognitive load is a real thing. And when we deplete, when we're angry, when we're tired, when we're hungry, any of those depleted states, cognitively, we just cannot. You can't remember, you can't execute, you can't be as strategic, you can't make decisions.
Wow.
That's the external intrapersonal. I love that you brought up the interpersonal.
Right.
Let's keep going with my daughters. This is like a relationship thing, right? And there's some amazing parallels there. If you think about, is this how I would act to other people?
Yeah.
So again, imagine if my daughters came up to me and they said, I'm hungry, or Mom, I'm sad, or I'm really tired, or I'm afraid and I need to talk about something. What if every time they came to me with a need, I dismissed them?
Right.
No, honey, I can't. No, go talk. No, just stop. Like, no,
time.
just deal with it. I don't have time. Like, no. What would their relationship with me be? Would I feel safe? Would I feel trustworthy? Would I feel like someone that they could depend on?
Right. And then what would their relationship with themselves end up being?
Totally.
With you being such a central part in their lives.
Yes.
The message of, you're not important. You don't matter to me.
Exactly.
Wow. I mean, you can just see the ripple effects of this, right?
Think about when we do that to ourselves. I'm hungry. You can eat later. I'm really sad about that. Suck it up. Come on. I'm feeling tired. Keep going. You
Get
haven't gotten
focused.
enough done yet. You didn't do this. Look at your list of things you need to do. Are you a safe place for yourself? Do you trust yourself? Are you trustworthy? Have you shown yourself that you are an empathetic, compassionate person to be in relationship with? If you can't give that to yourself, it's really hard for you to show up in your life and design and be intentional and move forward if you don't have a basic safe place to come back to. You live in your own mind, right? Yes, you want the other people around you to do that for you. Absolutely.
Right.
But if you think about the amount of time that you're interacting with your own mind versus interacting with those other people, create your own safe space, create your own empathetic place, create your own self-compassion in order to support yourself. You live with yourself more than anybody else, and it's such a critically important relationship.
Right. So say more about that. Create your own safe space. What do you mean exactly by that? That's such an important concept and goes right to, I love this, how it marries with conscious living, educate, empower, and enlighten our world. And I think about that creating a safe space is it's a form of self-empowerment. So speak more about that.
Yeah. So this is so fun. This is like all coming full circle. I
That's
love it when
great.
that happens. So I mentioned a little bit, right? Like we're going to be responsive to our own biological needs. We're going to eat when we're hungry. We're going to make sure that we get enough sleep. We're going to rest if we need to. We're going to give ourselves space. We need social interaction. We need engagement. We need leisure. We need just time off, right?
Hugs and laughter and move our bodies
yeah, those are all basic biological needs.
Yep.
But also, we have a set of emotional needs. We have a full expression of emotion that is perfectly natural and normal. It is normal to get angry. It's normal to feel jealous. It's normal to feel sad. It's normal to feel just sort of neutral, right? In addition to all the positive things.
Yep.
And some of the work, this is where it's fun because it comes full circle. Kristen Neff is another researcher who is part of the Best Year of Your Life Summit. She has incredible work on the concept of self-compassion. And that sounds like a fluffy concept. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to like say nice things to myself. It's actually very systematic and has been very systematically researched, where when we are in a space where we need empathy, we need to feel held, we need to feel like we're safe in order to express emotions, move through them, thrive through them, be effective, even in the face of like incredible adversity. Self-compassion is the thing that we can turn to. And the components of it are, one, being mindful, acknowledging the situation you're in. I got negative feedback at work when I didn't expect it. So that's number one. And it made me feel sad. It made me feel angry. Whatever the case may be, state the obvious, like just acknowledge your situation. So
let it be there.
Yes. Without judgment. Just these are the facts. I got negative feedback at work and I feel angry as a result. So that's one. Two, connect to a common humanity. In the consciousness work, we talk a ton about how interconnected we are. This is what we like to call the of course response. Okay. Of course you feel angry. Anyone in a situation who received negative feedback that they weren't expecting, they would feel angry. You are not alone. There's nothing wrong with you because you felt angry. Of course you did. People feel angry in situations like that. So that's two, common humanity. And then three, offer yourself a kindness. But you know what? I'm here for you. You're going to do better next time. We're going to sit down and we're going to work on this. We're going to think about how we can do better next time. And what this does, you can see what this does. Life hands us lessons every single day. And whether we learn from them or not is very dependent on our ability to acknowledge the situation we're in and be open to change. It's tough to be open to change when you're being punitive and punishing yourself for something.
For sure.
So that self-compassion helps us say, this is the situation. It's not toxic positivity. I'm not planning, or I'm not pretending like this didn't happen. It absolutely did.
Or pretending that I'm not upset about it.
Yes, absolutely. And of course I'm upset. I'm not weak or handling it badly because I'm upset. I'm a human being with emotions
Right.
who had an emotional response, and that's
Right.
okay.
And
And here's what I'm going to do.
You know what happens when we allow ourselves to feel them? They pass.
Yes, they do.
They
Yes, they
pass.
do.
What
They
you resist
do.
persists,
Absolutely.
gets subjugated and transmuted. No, 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 it's fine. I shouldn't be so petty. Whatever. What do I care what she thinks? I got to get on with my day. And that anger gets, it gets covert in some other part of the body, comes out when you come home, when the kids are hungry, and, it's going to come out. And I love what you're saying about neutral self-observation. Just don't judge it. Like, oh, wow, that really pisses me off. I really wish she didn't say that to me today.
Yeah,
And just that allowing that, it's right there, quintessential. That is conscious living.
absolutely.
Here's what happened. Here's how I feel about it. It's going to pass. And then you are going to go on and say what to do about it. So you are continuing with that thought.
Yeah. And that, when my husband says you talk to yourself a lot, I literally say these things to myself. I'll say, you know what? I'm feeling really anxious about this upcoming thing that I need to deliver to a client. It's a very large deliverable. I'm feeling really anxious about this. Well, of course you are. This is a huge, project that you're working on. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity. We're going to do our best at this, aren't we? We're going to get in there and we're going to deliver the best thing that we can. And we're going to trust our abilities. You can do this. Anybody would feel nervous right now, but here's what you're going to do moving forward. Self-compassion is this incredible tool that if you can make that your default response, if you can practice it, basketball player, this is like shooting free throws over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
Yep. If you can develop that muscle memory where your knee-jerk reaction in difficult situations is to acknowledge, connect to a common humanity, and offer a kindness instead of just being penalizing to yourself, you'd be amazed at how far you can go.
So I want to go a little further with that. So what is the outcome? So let's say our listeners really get this, right? And they go throughout the day and maybe even put a note in their calendar, practice self-compassion today, put in some structures, some reminders. What's the outcome? How does this benefit people? Why does it matter to be that awake, that aware, that conscious, and that compassionate with yourself?
There's so many ripple effects from this. One is that it helps you develop, I'm sure people have heard of growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not good at that yet, or whatever. I haven't gotten there yet. This idea that we can get better and we can improve.
Yeah.
You can't improve at something that you're already perfect at. Life just inherently involves failure, big and small, but we're going to fail.
Yeah.
This allows you
news, right? Because the more you fail, the more you're actually moving and growing and getting toward your goal. Yeah.
You bet. But you're not going to grow. You're not ever going to have that opportunity. Think about me back in grad school, right? I don't want to run because what if I don't do it perfectly?
What if my score isn't what it should be, or my time isn't what it should be? Yeah.
Right. You're never going to put yourself in situations where you might fail if you feel that like that failure is the end all be all of who you are.
Right.
You will put yourself in situations where you might fail if you feel like it's safe to fail. So your growth will be so much more if you can learn to support yourself empathetically. There is and people, the knee-jerk reaction that I hear from people is, no, I have to be hard on myself. Otherwise I won't take it seriously. The research does not play that out.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
It puts people in a situation where they're afraid to fail and they don't try. So that's one.
Right.
But when we think about, I guess, even more broadly, what this does, this gets into some of the more fundamental mindfulness pieces that, we all, talk about and think about in our work, but it's training your mind to be more an observer of your emotions, of your thoughts. It puts you in a good relationship with them that can be much more effective, where you're not so wrapped up in them. It also is, you've probably heard about the, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, stress response.
Yeah.
this is another way of combating that fight or flight stress response. It's a way of regulating your nervous system. It's, when you think about we as human beings being interpersonal, social human beings, one thing we do for comfort is we go to each other for comfort. We go to each other to get that verbal comfort and feedback.
And validation, to feel seen, to feel validated.
Yeah. And when we can't get that from another person, maybe there isn't someone there, we can give that to ourselves. And so it's a way of just like